Hey everyone, how's it going? What am I working on now? Working on a 2013 Ford Escape. I don't remember if I made a video on this. This thing came in a couple of weeks back. Customer's complaint is there's an issue where it keeps throwing a transmission code and it goes into a limp mode. What I found was the main connector that goes into the transmission, like through the front cover, as soon as I pulled it off, there was oil coming through. So the only thing that could be is this. This is the valve body, and it could only be something to do with this piece here. This is a lead frame on here, but now it comes complete with the valve body itself. I also have a new connector because the connector is broken on here. And if you come up and under, I already took this clamp off. I got to take this pipe out of the way because I got to get this front cover off. The connector, now it's up there somewhere. What I wound up doing was I used zip ties, as you see across there, because I couldn't latch the connector back in place. You can just see it right there. I couldn't latch it back in place because somebody had messed with it before and broke it. So that's one problem. So I figured, well, I already know I got a problem with the lead frame, so we're going to replace that. Got to take that front cover off. So I'm not going to walk through everything on this because it's just too complicated. I got way too much work to do today. However, this is what they give you to replace that connector with. So you don't repin it or anything, you actually replace the wiring. Now the interesting thing is this is what I wanted to show you. Now looking at the paperwork, this is the paperwork for the valve body, and you actually have to program it with these numbers in order to make that valve body work. However, here are the instructions for that connector, and it's just a generic instruction kit for connectors, okay? This is what they give you from the factory. Now, interestingly enough, they tell you if you're using 16 gauge wire, do it this way. If you're using 14 gauge wire, do it this way. For 16 gauge wire, they want you to solder the wires together. Okay, that's fine. That's what they want you to do, but that's not what I do. However, if you're using 14 gauge wire or larger, they want you to get heat shrink ready, center one in, blah, 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 put the butt splice in and crimp it. There is no mention of solder anywhere there. So that's the reason for that. Now, you all know that I don't bother with solder. Never have, don't ever have issues. I know some of you like to solder, that's great. You know, if you do a good job soldering and you like to solder, wonderful. Not what I do, but you can do whatever you want to do. Just showing you things that I do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this thing apart. When I run into things that are interesting, I will show you. I'm not going to go through everything pulling it apart and film everything, but I'll show you once it's up on the bench and what we have to do from there. And this card that they give you that I have to fix on the side of the transmission, these numbers, I have to program that into it. And I got a funny feeling, I'm not sure, I think my K10 scanner will do that, but I'm not positive. I could swear I saw something on there for entering those numbers, but I'm going to find out. If not, then we have to have a programmer come here and program it. So let me get going. Let me get everything apart I have to do. I got to drain some fluid out of it. But like I said, when I come across stuff that I find interesting, then I'm going to show you. But other than that, I'm just going to get it out, get it on a bench, and I'll show you from there. Okay, so I just wanted to show you once that pipe was, that air charge pipe was out of the way, what I had to do the last time to get that connector to stay in place. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do, but it did work, it did hold. So now once this is out, this connector, see it just falls off, but as you see, it's full of transmission fluid. So the reason we are replacing the connector is because of the electrical problem at hand, the intermittent fault. So that's why we're replacing this connector. Plus it's broken, the locking mechanism. So that's the reason for a replacement. All right, let me get that pan off, let me get the transmission drained, and we'll go from there. The front cover is off. So up in there you can see the valve body now, and if you look closely, you can actually see the top of that connector is actually busted off too for the lead frame. So somebody's been messing with this thing. Somebody did something. Not sure what. But anyway, so now I got to get the valve body out. Like I said, I'm not going to go through everything to show you how to do this because I just don't have the time. So with the valve body out, now there's actually two halves to this. I'm gonna have to split this and take this out. I'm gonna have to look this up because I wanna make sure there's a bolt that goes here and there's a bolt that goes here. I took that out because I thought it was something that had to come out initially. This stud here, this stud goes in this hole there. I had to take that out with the valve body, otherwise I couldn't get it to clear. So let me get that stuff out and we're gonna go from there. Hey, you know what? I decided to wing it. See what happens. So I'm going to open this thing up. Now when you go back together with the valve body, you have to torque everything the right way. Because if you do not torque it, you can distort the valve body. That's something you don't want to do. Now you got to be careful too, because on the inside there can be balls, little check balls inside there. You got to be mindful of that. So if they are there, you don't lose them. Okay, so really not a big deal. Okay. So nothing got stuck to this gasket here, but I got two bolts that hold that gasket to it. But we are going to reuse all of this. Now some of you may be asking, why are you reusing it? It's common practice, especially since nothing got hung up on here. It's common practice to reuse it. Just makes your life a lot easier. Because trying to clean that gasket off, a lot of times there's a metal plate in here. A lot of times when you try to clean that thing off, it just takes you forever to get it clean. If it didn't break, leave it alone, just switch it over. Now, let's look inside here. And you can see one check ball right there. There's probably another one in there somewhere. But nothing fell out, so we are all good. All right, let me get that unbolted and let's get that switched over. Let's see. These bolts are not critical. Yes, they are when it comes to torquing, but they're not like critical in the sense of you're going to warp or distort something. Obviously, you don't want to over tighten the daylights out of it because you can break something or strip something, and that's not what you want to do. So let me go look at a breakdown of this thing. I want to make sure there's nothing in here that I have to switch over into here. Oh, it actually came with a gasket. Didn't even realize that. Okay. Came with a gasket. All right, so we're perfect. I don't even have to worry about it. So I could just put this back over. Because I got to return this, I believe, for a core. I'm not even sure. May not be. It might be a brand new. Let's see. It's right from Ford. What does it say? Yeah, it's a core on there. Okay, so it's a remand. Not a big deal. So now all I'm going to do is verify that everything looks the same, which everything looks the same. Doesn't look like anything's missing in here. So you don't want to wipe this off with a rag either, because you wipe it off with a rag, you got little pieces of lint stuck in there. You don't want to do that. So all we're going to do is just drop this in place on here. Like that. And then I don't even recall which bolts it was. It was this one. And this one. And all I'm going to do is bring them down. Just like that, and I'm going to go look up and see what the torque specs are, because I'm going to set the torque on those, and then we're going to throw this valve body in. All right, so those bolts are 89, and then all the other bolts are 89. Now, usually what I would do is I would set the torque wrench to half. I would set it to about 50, 45, something in that range. But with this, all I'm going to do is it's only two bolts. It's only two bolts here. So all I'm going to do is just go a little bit. And then finish it. Just like that. But what I'm going to do is Oh, always back up on your torque wrenches. Back them down to 0 when you're done, if you want them to last. If you don't do this, you can actually destroy the calibration inside. So what I'm going to do is when I put this in, like I said, I'm going to torque all of the bolts halfway, like 40, 45, something like that, 50 maybe. Then go back over and do them at 89. And they don't give you a specific pattern. They tell you basically just go from the inside out, you know, crisscross. That's all. So they don't give you a specific, you know, do this one, then do this one, then do this one. They don't do that. So it's up to your discretion, I guess. All right, let me get this in. And like I said, I got to get that stud hanging out in that hole and get everything in place. And then also, you got to be certain when you're doing this that this lever here, you got to make sure there's a lever from your shifter that actually catches that groove, and that's what helps select park, reverse, neutral, drive. Got to make sure that you're in the right spot when you're going back together with that. So if not, you can either bend this or you can break the pin inside. Actually, I wonder if you could see the inside. Let's go take a look. And yes, that right there, that pin has to catch that because that whole piece rotates as you're shifting it. So, all right, and as you can see, there's a plate right in there with a gasket on it. Apparently that gasket, if you had to replace that gasket, you got to replace the entire plate. I did read that. They don't even offer the gasket separate. So let me get this in place. I cannot film this, just too tight. So the valve body's in. I got all the bolts caught, and they're down finger tight. And I got that piece caught that catches the shift lever. Had to look at that with a mirror. I can't even show you that through the video because you'll never be able to see it with the valve body in the way. So there it is. I just had the rag sitting here. It comes right out. I stuffed that in afterwards because it keeps dripping all over the place. But yeah, so all the bolts are in. Nothing's torqued. They're just finger tight down. See, like I can even back that out. So they're all finger tight down. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to half torque them. Basically bring them to half torque. And you got to remember, there's 10 long bolts and 12 short ones. So when you're doing this, count. Make sure you get to 22. This way you know you got every single one of them. Because if all of a sudden I go back and I hit one that's already torqued and I'm only at, like, say 20 bolts, I missed 2 somewhere. I got to figure it out. So a lot of times what I'll do is, like, I have a printout here and it shows the shorts and the longs. But what I'll do is I'll put a mark as to which bolts I've tightened up. So I might do that, I might not, I don't know. It just depends on how I feel, honestly. It's actually the next day now. So I finished torquing the valve body last night. I went half torque first and then I did full torque after. But I got everything set. So now there's 2 electrical connectors. I got to hook those up. And then I have to fix that wire harness. So that's actually the next step. But let me just show you from up top here, because you do most of them, but there's 3 that I get to from up top. It's just a lot easier that way. But here, there you can see the valve body. And there you see 1 electrical connector there. There's another one that hangs out on the side. I just got to wrap that around and connect that. And then I have to fix that connector down there. That's going to be fun. But it's got to get done. All right, so let me hook that stuff up so I don't forget, and we're going to go from there. Okay, so through the magic of television, I got a disguise on, different glasses. These are higher magnification. I keep these in my toolbox when I'm doing wiring stuff, just because I can't see otherwise. So anyway, got the connector here, and as you see, I de-pinned some of this. So I de-pinned this because on here, not all the terminals are used. So I was thinking about originally de-pinning this, but then I'm like, you know what? No, this thing actually has some kind of an issue with a connection. And this thing already had the training fluid getting in it. Not that training fluid would create a problem with the connection, but I was just concerned because the code that it was setting, and unfortunately I don't recall what the code was. I might have it in my notes. If I find it in my notes, I'll let you know. The code that it was setting could have been caused by a faulty connection here. So just the fact of everything that this connection was broken, tampered with beforehand, I'm just going to replace everything. So also what I want to show you is this. See how I staggered the end here? You don't want to have, like, cut it all off and put all these connectors all in the same spot, because then when you are done, you wind up with a big globbed end here. You know, it looks like an earthworm, so to speak. You know how an earthworm has that big ring on it? So you want to avoid that. So that's the reason for this. So now all I'm going to do is, and I've showed you this before, doing wiring repairs. I'm just going to cut those accordingly. I'm going to do it one at a time, and then I put the cap back on this after this thing has plugs in it. So after I get those plugs, see those? Those just protect those cavities from getting any intrusion of dirt, moisture, stuff like that. So once I get all of that done, then I can wrap this thing up, and hopefully that cover gasket, I'm actually waiting for this. This is that seal that goes around the valve body that connector actually goes to. And this thing is hard as a rock. So I'm waiting for this, and I'm waiting for a new seal for the cover. Once I get all those, I can put all that back together. But yeah, let me get going with this. As you can see, I'm putting this up in place, and I'm doing one at a time. So what I do is, I already cut the first one there. So I just kind of like line this up, and then I snip the wire accordingly. Make sure you don't go too close to what you're trimming into, because you don't want to be in a position where you realize, like, let's say this wire was this short, and then you got to come up on it, and all of a sudden you're like, oops, too short. So just think about that ahead of time before you do anything. So this actually will all come out fine. The connector itself at the end will be about this much longer than originally, which is fine. It's not going to affect anything. So let me just keep going with this. With the heat shrink all in place, now what I'm doing is I'm taking those rubber plugs and switching them over. Oddly enough, the brand new connector didn't have this piece. And this piece is what latches down and holds all the pins and those plugs in place. See the plug there? It's blocking a hole. What you do is you just pick it out of there with a pair of needle nose pliers. Let me show you that real quick. Let me set you up here. And go down. And basically, you're just going to grab, I'm trying to do this, and I'm watching it through the camera. I'm not even watching what I'm doing. And just gently pull it out. See that? So now when it's out, I'm just going to wipe this down with a rag. That's all. The little bit of training fluid is not going to hurt anything, so don't worry about that. Because remember, they have electrical connections inside the transmission, and you know there's no issues with fluid being on that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take, back am I? We're going to take this, and we're going to stuff it inside here. Let me back you up a little bit. Oops. Let me just change your angle. Hopefully I don't drop anything while I'm doing this. Okay, so now all I'm going to do is take this, and we're going to stuff it in there like that. That's it. That's all you got to do. If for some reason you don't have those, you can use silicone. You know, silicone sealer. Put a little dab inside each hole, because you want to prevent moisture from getting into the connector, and that's the reason for that. So now what we can do is you have to spread this apart like this. Let me see, is that a good angle? And then this goes in place like such. Now I can't do this with the camera in my way, so I'm going to have to do this outside the camera, but you get the general idea. I got to feed the wires in between all of these little combs and get this in place. So let me do that, because it has to latch down inside. It's just odd that the brand new connector didn't come with this. So now with that in place, let's see. With this all in place here, as you see, it's all routed nicely and latched in place. I had to take this off. I forgot to show you that before. This actually locks the pins in place. So you can put this back in place. And how you get it out is you go through the little window here, and you pick up on a tab, sorry, I was getting a phone call. It'll pick up on the tab and release this. All right, hang on a second, I got a phone call. So with everything all together now, we could put this cover piece on, and then I can wrap the wires, and we can make this all look nice again. Sometimes, you know, you're never gonna get it perfect, which is fine. Once everything's together, you can like loop wires over each other just to make it look neat for when you wrap it all up. So let me get this done. Okay, so there you go. And it's all wrapped up. And what I do is I stop the tape, and I have the tape hanging out on the wire, then I put the loom back over it, and I have the tape hanging out through the opening of the loom, put the loom back over, and then I wrap the rest of the loom with the tape. This way the loom doesn't come off. At the very end here, as you see the zip tie there, what I do is where I stop with the tape, where I break the tape off or cut the tape, whatever, I usually put a black zip tie on it. Anybody out there that's ever used electrical tape on a car or on anything, you know it'll tend to wind itself off. Not all the time, but has a tendency to do that. So that's the reason for the zip tie. Put the zip tie at the end. This way it just keeps it in place. All right, let's put the cover on, and let's put fluid in this thing, and let's get this done. So there we go, all together, all nice and neat. And you can see, even with a little bit longer wire, it just tucks up out of the way, no big deal. You want to make sure that you're not in a situation where you're going to have the harness hitting like a stud or anything like that, or rubbing on something. So now all I got to do is put the charge pipes in, and then the undercover and stuff back on, and then we're going to fill it with fluid, and then I'm going to check to see if my scanner will actually do that programming, or do we have to get a programmer here? It'd be really nice if my scanner will do it. So we're all together, and I have 5 quarts of fluid in it. I'm going to have to check it when I'm done. But I have the battery charger on it because I want to make sure the voltage stays up. These are the numbers I need to enter. I got my King Bolin K10 here. I'm going to see if this thing will actually do it, so we don't have to call a programmer. But I'm going to put you on a tripod here, and let's see what I can figure out. You can come along with me for a ride here, so to speak. All right, let's see. Let's go to diagnostics, and we're going to go to American Ford. Gonna hit OK. Sorry for the light glare on here, but there's nothing I can do about it. Except maybe that. Let's do an automatic search. Ignition is on. 2013 Escape 2 liter. I might have said it was a 2014. Okay. Yes. Okay. Let me set this up in a different position here. Make my life a little bit easier. All right. So, I actually want to go to powertrain control module, or does this have a TCM? I don't recall. I don't see one, so let's go to PCM. Alright, special functions. Misfire power balance, misfire, relearn vehicle data, clear transmission adapts, transmission characterization, solenoid identification. That's what I am looking for. The procedure will read transmission strategy, blah, 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 blah. Solenoid data, this function is used on hybrid vehicle applications to update something. This function should be performed as recommended in a service manual. You want to continue? Yes. All right. So, I've never done this before, so menu selection, what is that? Maybe that's what this is. Select one of the following. Transmission characterization. This function is used to read the transmission strategy and identification number and provide the ability to update the transmission strategy after a service, part, transmission, or module replacement. Refer to the workshop manual for further system details. Okay. confirm the following: 6F front wheel drive, 13-digit solenoid body strategy, 7-digit. Yes, okay. Is this transmission correct? Yes, so let's just make sure we have 13 digits. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, yes. And then 7-digit solenoid ID. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, yes. Okay. Performing the test function. Are displayed. So the current numbers are displayed, and that's what the computer sees. Now that's the old information. Select the information button. We're going to update. Transmission strategy. Okay, so looks like we can do this. Let's see. 2, 3, 2, 4, 0, 2, 2, 3, 2, 4, 0, 2, 5, 2, 0, 5, 2, 0, 6, 8, 4, 7, 6, 8, 4, 7. Okay. Transmission IDN is 0, 6. I don't know if they care about capitals, but I do. 5, 9, 8, C. Okay. Hit OK. Cannot obtain matching module information. Cannot be programmed. Okay, so maybe the scanner cannot do it. Let's see. Maybe there's something I'm missing here. Transmission characteristic solenoid identification. 06598C. So that came up. Drive procedure. Okay, hold on. Transmission strategy was not available. Used to update the module. Okay. A drive procedure will be required to allow the module to learn adaptive transmission pressure control. Okay. Transmission IDN is used to update the module. Service tag on the transmission. Okay, which they should now. So that all looks correct. Following procedure will allow the module to learn. Okay. Function complete. All right. So let's go back here for a second. Function is used to read the strategy. Confirm, and we did, yes. See, it says transmission strategy not available. That's weird. But it did update the other number. Let's go back to update. Transmission strategy. Let's try that. 232 402 520 6847. Oh, 6 D as in dog 598 C. Okay. Cannot obtain matching module information. Cannot be programmed. Okay. Very weird. I've seen something like this before, but it actually does take it. Okay, so function complete. What if I go back to, let's exit. I wonder if that's set. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to have to try and see what happens. All right, let's see what happens. All right, guys. So unfortunately, I lost the last part of that video. Don't know why, but I did. I cannot find it. What happened was it did not take the programming. So we had to call a programmer in to the vehicle, which is what we normally do. So it wasn't a big deal. It was already kind of figured into the price of the vehicle. of the repair rather. So I did try it with that scanner. It does have a section there where I can enter the numbers, but it did not, the vehicle did not take, or the programming did not take. So obviously I can't do it with that scanner. You know, I think it's just there so you can actually read it, but for some reason it allows you to go in that far. I'm going to try it again on another vehicle, just in case it was a fluke with that one. But so yeah, we wound up calling a programmer in. He came and programmed it, and then everything was fine. I road tested it, everything was great. The customer picked it up. It's actually been a week now since I've done that video, and we haven't heard back from the customer. So I'm assuming everything's good, because I got a funny feeling if there was a problem, we would have heard back from them. So unfortunately, like I said, lost the last part of that video. I couldn't show you that. But with the programmer coming and doing the actual programming, they have the factory software and the factory programming and everything else, so they're able to do that type of stuff. I kind of didn't think the scanner was going to do it, but I figured I could see the thing there. Maybe it'll allow me to do it. I don't know. I figured it was worth a shot. So no loss, no gain, but whatever. So yeah, like I said, sorry you couldn't see the absolute ending of that, but you kind of got the gist of everything that went on throughout that video. All right, so that is pretty much it. All right, guys, hope you have a great weekend. Hope you got something out of that. Keep wrenching.